Yesterday, when the man who can't be mentioned and myself went to this Second World War reenactment, I call him the man who can't be mentioned because he's come to a position, a time in his life, whereby he doesn't want any record of his existence ever being here on planet Earth. He thinks the only reason he came here, had the misfortune to come here, was just so he could say he's been here, so the spirit could realize that, oh, I'm having a human experience. Well, he's done this now, and he's pretty well done with it, and so he wants to go home. And so he doesn't want to be recorded in any shape or form, and he's very happy to be known as Mr. Nobody, because he's not laying claim to his body. He knows that his spirit having the illusion of a human experience. And so I thought, well, I used to call him Mr. Nobody, but now I shall probably call him the man who shall not be named. So some of you will know who I'm speaking about, others won't, and so all I can say is a long-term friend, and I'm not permitted and free to say any more because I have to respect another man's desire. So yesterday, when we was at this Second World War reenactment, the first thing we did was we come upon these woods where there was a battle ensuing, and it was like, oh, it was painful to not only the ears, to the body and to the spirit. And we decided that we wasn't going to go amongst that due to how it made us feel. But then a bit later on in the day, we decided, let's just go in for like 5 minutes, because I wanted to make a film to show you guys. And so we went in there, and I didn't get the best of it. I only got a few shots being, fired out, but there was machine gun fire and mortar and all those sort of things going on. And it was a pretty good show. And we got out there pretty quickly. And then we were frowning, and our bodies were recoiling from the recoil of those weapons. And we expressed to each other the incredible times that we live in Europe, in Great Britain in particularly, because we haven't had our isles invaded for what, 1,000 years? Since the time of the Vikings. And so in our collective psyche, we don't know, most of us, what it is like to be in war, at war, to go to war. And so we can feel for the Ukrainian people, because they're just normal people like you and I, only they have been afflicted with the world chess players, and they're being used as pawns. And so many of their young men are being dragged into that conflict, and just the general populace is in a war-torn country. And it's absolutely barbaric, it's disgusting, and it makes you shudder that the human being hasn't evolved any more than it has. Now, we could say, well, it's not the people's fault, it's the masters of the earth, these people that consider themselves to be Greek gods, who are just playing chess with humanity. Yes, that is the case, but there is always a sector of human beings who are being manipulated by these people, and they're putting their hands up because they want to feel the hero and they want to go and shed blood. Why would you join the forces if you didn't want to shed blood? That's the whole thing of it. I mean, this whole American thing that's still going on today, I mean, serving the country, you know, aye aye sir, and all this sort of business. You're serving your masters, lads. That's all you're ever going to do. And if I could, I would like to reach these soldier boys, and I'd have a thing or two to tell them, to point out to them, because they all become fully aware of it when it's too late, when they come back with their psyches obliterated, when they come back with no legs or no hearing or sound, or even the loss of one eye or an arm is absolutely tragic. And what happens? They get thrown on the slag heap, and their country is no longer prepared to look after the heroes. They're not heroes anymore, they're just burdens on their money. And they don't want anything to do with these veterans, and they would rather them dead. And that's why in some states now they've passed this euthanasia law, whereby if you have had enough of that, then you can just go and leave. You can leave any time you want and we'll help you. Of course they will, because they don't want to pay your pensions anymore. So it's absolutely vile. But what it reminded me of was when I was living in Bulgaria, some probably 12, 13 years ago initially. I lived in Bulgaria, Eastern Europe, for 5 years total, 3 years and then 2 years. And when I was there, I used to frequent a shooting range, and I liked, and I still like, the aesthetic and the kinesthetic. I like the touching, the feeling, the looking and the holding of these weapons for some bizarre reason. Particularly I love flintlock muskets. They are absolutely incredible. And I think there's some sort of morbid curiosity which stems from my collective unconscious in relation to the power that these things have and the instant death that they can bring about. And so when you have a gun in your hand and other people don't, then you're effectively God. You can just point your finger and end somebody's life. And so it's probably got something to do with that. There's a residue of that still in our collective psyche. But I used to shoot all different sorts of these guns, like the Magnum 45, go ahead punk, make my day. I wanted to know what it felt like to hold and shoot one of those. Then the James Bond, you know, little PPK. Then the standard issue Browning 9mm. Then the Colt 45, the army thing. Lots of different guns. Uzi, machine gun, you know, and a whole array of guns. And I felt what they all felt like to handle and to shoot. But when I started really to become an awoken being, when I was meditating a great deal, you see, I went with a friend one particular year, and we went a few times, and it was fine. I was fine with it. It was all good. Then by the time I'd been meditating, probably about 6 months, we went back again, and after a few shots, I couldn't do it anymore, because I was highly sensitive to the recoil of not only the recoil from the spent cartridge with the explosion, but the recoil of the body recoiling against that sudden shock to its nervous system. I felt it so profoundly, like the blast. I felt the blast passing through my body, and instantly my spirit told me, don't ever do this again. You are destroying your soul. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what is happening. Every time somebody fires a gun, they are destroying their soul. Little by little, they are destroying their nervous system. They are destroying the very essence of what it is to be a human being. And we all are aware of the effects of shell shock, particularly in view of the amount of soldiers who were I won't even say who were lucky to survive. I think people were better off dead. Those that served in the trenches were better off dying in the trenches rather than living, because their minds and souls were torn into shreds. And of course, most of us would have seen the effects of shell shock, where the whole nervous system is just gone, and that's all they do. They're absolutely just been shot apart. And so myself and the man who will never be mentioned, we were speaking about this, and we were saying, can we ever imagine? You see, we listened to about 5 minutes of that bang, 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 whereas in the trenches it was almost a 24-hour-a-day thing. It went on for not only weeks, months, but years. And anybody that went to those front lines, the vast majority of them weren't coming back, and if they did come back, then they weren't coming back sane. And so we have to know that that recoil coming from that explosion, which blasts through our nervous system, making the whole of the nervous system recoil and cringe. But when people get used to it, and Americans are used to it because it's their culture, they've grown up with it. We're not in Europe, we're not gun-doting nations, mostly. And if we do have guns, then predominantly it's the police. Citizenry, you know, are not allowed really to carry guns, and we're most certainly not encouraged. And so I'm thinking, well, if you shoot guns, unlike some of my friends, they tell me they're going to the shooting range and they're going to fuck up some this, that and the other, and I'm like, you think you're fucking up whatever you're shooting at, but I'd like to turn you on to the fact that you're fucking up the very, very precious operating system that you have within this gift of a body. And I would advise you never to shoot a weapon again, because if you have the ear plugs in or earphones on and you're shooting and you're happy because you can't hear it that much, your body is feeling it, people. And I'm telling you now, when you become more in tune with your spirit, then you feel every last shot. And it's kind of like, no, I will never put my body through that again. You see, when you're holding it, the whole recoil fires down your arm and across your chest and through your heart. Wow. And so, listening to that going on all over the place yesterday, with that big reenactment they've got with the tanks and the mortars and all the rest of it. Bang, 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 bang. Well, in a time of war, you never know when that's coming. It can come any hour of the day or night. And so you're living on edge. You're absolutely in recoil, in a state of recoil, in anticipation. And so your soul is being destroyed. And so our hearts must go out to any nation which is at war, any nation which is the end game of these sinister, evil masters of the world, who just want to use human beings to acquire more wealth and land. It's always been the same, and it will never change unless we, the real human beings of this planet, we just say no. We're not doing it anymore. I am not going to kill my brothers and sisters. I'm not going to kill my brothers and sisters' babies. I absolutely will not do it for you, you fuckers. Don't give a flying fuck about us as soldiers. You just fill us full of bullshit propaganda. You take advantage of us when we're 17 years old. And you put a dog tag around our necks and you call us the dogs of war. Because to you, that's all we are. And so, people, if you know anybody that's in these forces, particularly in America and Britain, people, countries like ours, we aren't getting invaded anytime soon. And of course, the only time that America has been invaded, other than when the British, you know, had a bit of a fracas with you, was Pearl Harbor. And that wasn't really America, was it? And even today, the Hawaiians mostly don't want to be American. They want to be Hawaiian. You know, they want to say in their own future and their own citizenry and their own creation of their own nation. And so that's starting to come to a head more now, after these fires that mysteriously have obliterated aluminum car wheels into white ash. Come on, people, there's a whole lot more going on. When all of the houses and cars in the vicinity have been turned into white ash and parts of the metal car have melted. Cars don't melt in bushfires. The temperature never gets up to anything which will remotely exceed the melting of metal, like bonnets and wheels and steering wheels and all this sort of thing. There's some laser technology which is going on there, and so any of you that are not aware of this, then just tune into it. Just put in the computer, what the fuck's going on with these fires in Hawaii, and you'll hear people speaking about it. And so that's all I wanted to say in this video. Just a general awareness about the ill effects of firearms, because even if you've grown up and guns have been your culture, and your body has grown used in a certain degree to the shock to its nervous system, it is taking its toll. And I can't help but think it doesn't matter how many shots you fire. It's a bit like how many cigarettes you smoke. And if some people say, I only smoke a couple of 3 a day or something like that, well, it's a couple of 3 a day more than your body needs. And ultimately, there's a toll which will be taken. There's payback for this stuff, for taking 2,000 carcinogens into your body every time you have a cigarette. And so, yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. I looked around and I love that stuff. I always have. When I was a kid, I always used to watch World at War with my dad. I was mesmerised by that that program of the Second World War, and I still remember the haunting music today, and the sepia. Most of it was recorded in black and white or sepia, and they had the end of the show with the music, da 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 da, and all the time there was photos of children and women and children and young men burning. Da 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 da, shoulda da da. Oh my God, I was just mesmerised by it, and I wanted to know everything about the war. And I was very interested in it. And I particularly had a thing about German weaponry, infantry, the whole machine. I was mesmerised by it. And I thought that they looked the coolest, and they were the most efficient, and they were the best war machine. And it was only because everybody else ganged up on them with sheer numbers in the end that they lost. Otherwise they wouldn't have. They would have taken over the whole world and turned their world into their machine. Well, I wonder what the world would have been like now under their jurisdiction. And you know what? The Nazis never lost. The Nazis are still very, very prevalent today. And they are behind all of these wars that have been perpetrated throughout the whole of the world, which has had anything remotely to do with armaments. Wherever Western armament countries are involved, or oil drillers, or bankers, or anything like that, it's the Nazis that are behind them. And so they're still alive and kicking. And so we need to keep a vigil about this, guys and girls. And every time you hear about a bit of a fracas and a bit of a insurgency or whatever going on, you know that it's these greedy, heinous, sick bankers behind it all, using our bodies, our souls, just to line their pockets with gold and to give them more power over us, the fools. So, that's the thought for today, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bit macabre. It's a bit macabre. But this is the world we live in.